Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Christy, and if this is your first time here, welcome. I would like to ask that you guys go ahead and give this a like on your way in and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. So we are still waiting for a verdict in the Karen Read trial, and we're still playing catch up on testimony, but it's almost a good thing because we can go back and we can look at what people testified to and ask ourselves what is holding up this jury. So today we are going to get into Trooper Yuri Bukhenik. I think I'm saying that right. I don't really care if I am or not. He came across very full of himself. I'll just put it that way. I literally have one whole page of what he said that he's done in his life, his experience. But there were times that I think he was being difficult just to be difficult, just to be an ass. So let's get into it. So this is Yuri Bukhenik. He has been with the Massachusetts State Police since 2012. In 2003, he graduated from military police school at Fort Leonard Wood. He was with the Marines. When I lived in Illinois, when we were at Scott Air Force Base, they called it Fort Lost in the Woods, just so you know. Fun fact. He was stationed at Quantico, Virginia. He was with the Presidential Helicopter Squadron. He had a top secret Yankee White clearance, which I guess it sounds impressive, but I'm not that impressed because my dad was a retired Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force, and he had that clearance. And after he retired, they created a place for him to come back to civil service because he was the only one that could do his job. And he would take trips to talk to the Joint Chiefs of Staff before they had to go talk to the president. He would kind of tell them what they needed to say, basically. So I'm not impressed by all this. And my husband was security forces in the Air Force, and they had a unit. They were the Ravens, which would probably be similar to the Presidential Helicopter Squadron. So, like I said, I'm not impressed by it, but I think he thinks it's impressive, so that's why he threw all the little extra details in there. He lets us know that he was promoted meritoriously to corporal and sergeant. He had a platoon of 44 Marines. He was stationed at Camp Pendleton, California. He was a patrol supervisor on base as a military police officer. He came home to Massachusetts when his enlistment ended to pursue a law enforcement career with the Massachusetts State Police. He first worked for the VA Hospital Police. He obtained a secret clearance there. Then at Attleboro Police Department, he was on the Uniform Patrol and SWAT team. In 2011, he applied for the Massachusetts State Police Academy. He graduated and worked at, I think it's Sturbridge? Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Barracks, Millbury Barracks, and Foxborough Barracks. In 2015, he was selected to go to the Norfolk County DA's office with the detective unit and work homicide cases as a trooper. In December of 2021, he was promoted and took on a supervisory role in the unit. Alright, so that's all of his impressive life stuff. On January 29th, he got a call as a supervisor, or he was on call as a supervisor. His responsibilities were answering the detective that's on call any questions that might arise. The on-call detective unit, or the on-call detective until, God, I can't even read my own handwriting. The on-call detective until 7 a.m. was Trooper Michael Proctor. He's known him since September or October of 2019. The on-call system is compiled the month prior. So he said basically, like if you need a day off next month, you would put it in, and like for training, for trials, for personal reasons, vacations, blah, blah, blah. You put it in at the beginning of the month, and then his supervisor is Lieutenant Fanning, and I guess he puts together the on-call rotation. The unit commander's name is Detective Lieutenant Tully. Okay, January 29th, he gets a call at 6:44 a.m. from H Troop headquarters. They are the field headquarters for the Metro Boston area. They advised that there was a body in a snowbank in Canton. He said that he would call the on-call trooper, guess who? Michael Proctor. He called Proctor and advised him to contact Canton PD. Trooper Proctor starts making calls, gathering information. I don't know if you can hear Steve in the background, but he's like fed up with this case, so he's screaming. Okay, let's see. He was advised of the circumstances of where the body was located and what was transpiring, and he told Trooper Proctor that he would start shoveling out his driveway, because remember, snow, and meet him in Canton to begin their investigation. They met at the Canton PD at 9:15 a.m. He drove his personal truck because it had four-wheel drive and there was 10 to 15 inches of snow, and don't we know it? Thank you, Lally. His work vehicle is a front-wheel drive sedan, so makes sense. At 8:22 a.m., he was blowing snow out of his driveway. Trooper Proctor was in the parking lot at Canton PD. They walked in together. They went to the detective division and met with Sergeant Good. They talked to Sergeant Good for about 30 minutes and learned that it was John O'Keefe, and his body was transported to Good Samaritan Hospital in Brockton. They learned that Karen Reed was also transported to the hospital. He and Trooper Proctor went from Canton PD to the McCabe's house at 12 Country Lane. They just took one vehicle. He drove his truck. They spoke to Jen McCabe, Matt McCabe, and Brian Albert, and he says separately. Then they went to the Good Sam emergency room, and in the room they saw John O'Keefe's body on a gurney. His clothes were on the floor at the foot of the bed. He identified the clothing, put it in evidence bags. He said the clothing was on the floor in a pile, stacked on top of each other, soaking wet. He said that he gathered plaid boxers, an orange t-shirt, blue Lucky Brand jeans, a belt, a two-tone gray light thin hooded sweatshirt, a right sneaker, black in color, with white Nike brand. And I made a note to myself because it's really been bothering me, but like, why didn't they collect his socks? I don't know if there would be much information on the socks, but why would you not collect the socks? It's just odd. He says, due to aroma and observation, he noticed traces of vomit on the clothing. He collected each item and put it into a large evidence bag and double bagged it because it was so wet. He had Trooper Proctor contact the EMTs who transported John O'Keefe to have them check the ambulance for the other sneaker. He makes sure to say that they put on gloves when they gathered the clothing. Once it was secured in an evidence bag, it is sealed and logged into an evidence storage facility at the office. As necessary, it is signed out, shipped off for processing, review, or court proceedings. The bag was sealed with red or yellow tape. The tape is initialed and dated on the edge. If it's opened and the tape is cut, it is resealed, initialed, and dated, and it's noted in the system. In the office, 2 troopers are designated as evidence officers. They have access to the secure rooms designated strictly for evidence storage. The rooms... Stop it. Sorry. The rooms are inventoried, kept under lock and key, and there is digital access. I'm sorry if you can hear, my dog is grumpy and he's over here trying to intimidate the littler dogs, and it's right next to my microphone. So there's digital access, control, and alarm systems. Bukhenik doesn't have access to those rooms, and neither does Trooper Proctor. In January of 2022, Trooper Jeff Kakowski and Trooper David DeChico and Tully had access. Each item is logged in, processed in, and stored for processing in the evidence room. Sure it is. At the hospital, John O'Keefe's body observations. He was laying on his back with bruising to his eyelids, and then I don't know when he got his medical degree with all the other stuff he was doing, but he goes on to tell us that there was swelling and discoloration from blood pooling under his eyelids. He had a cut to his nostril and eyelid, and he starts going on about head trauma and all this, like he's some sort of medical expert, and he's not. And Bev didn't really stop him. So they ask him what the state police detective unit within the DA's office jurisdiction is regarding death investigations in Norfolk County. He said by statute, each county district attorney's office is provided jurisdiction over all death investigations, all unattended deaths, any death that basically there's not a doctor overseeing. He's done 500 plus death investigations with the unit in his 9 years, and he has done scores of investigations that involved head trauma. So here are some of the pictures of John. You can see his eyes are swollen. In the middle is not quite as close up. You can see that where they put the C-collar on him. He had been intubated, things like that. And then the infamous arm injuries where the car bit him, right? He said that he had consistent facial injuries to other subdural hematoma cases he's been involved in. Again, this guy, he shouldn't be allowed to give a medical opinion when he's not a doctor. Leave that to the medical examiner to tell us that there was a subdural hematoma. I don't need Trooper Bukhenik up here trying to make diagnosis on people that... Sorry. His extremities had abrasions to the upper forearm, the lower bicep area of the right arm. Each abrasion was linear and concentrated in a specific area of the arm. He says that they attempted to talk to Karen Reed at the hospital, but she was not there. They had spoke to her on the phone, and she told them that she had gone to her parents' house at 345 Country Hill Drive in Dighton. So they, Bukhenik and Proctor, went there after leaving Good Samaritan. They went to the Reed's house in Dighton. And then he shows us the clothing in the courtroom. He, makes the big production of opening the bags and pulling everything out all dramatically. I've got some of the pictures up here for you. He showed 4 items. The boxers weren't shown, and Lally said they're not going into evidence. Now, I'm not sure why. A lot of people were like, to maintain his dignity, blah, blah, blah. But if what we have heard, which is that there was vomit on the boxers, I don't know why they wouldn't have been included in the evidence. I mean, they collected them. They didn't collect the socks, but they collected the boxers, but they're not going to put them into evidence. I really don't know what to make of that. The boxers were in a bag with the jeans and the belt. He took out the jeans and the belt, but not the boxer shorts. The hoodie, shirt, shoe, jeans, and belt were all recovered from the hospital and put in one bag initially. At the office, they laid the clothing out on butcher paper to dry and then packaged it in separate bags, which, okay, fine, it was in a pile at the hospital, whatever, but they just picked it up and threw it all in one bag. So right there, cross-contamination, right? DNA-wise or anything else that may have been on the clothes-wise. Then they laid it out on butcher paper, which we get into a little more later with him, but I think for sure with Proctor. But they leave it laying for days on this butcher paper, and it's not in a secure area, which I find very sketchy. But they said it was so wet that it took like 6 days to dry or something. Give me a break. Meanwhile, they drove around with it all freaking day. They took it from the hospital, and then they went to Dighton, and then they went to the Canton PD, and then they finally took it and put it on the butcher paper. He says that the plastic from the taillight that was recovered at Fairview was never in the bag with the clothes. But how would we know? Lieutenant Mello came to the hospital to document the victim and clothing. I guess he's with the Crime Scene Services section, and they also call that the CSSS. They assist in documenting with videos, photos. They collect latent prints. They collect impressions, like if there was like a tire track or a footprint or whatever in the snow. They make what am I trying to say? They cast a mold. Yes, they cast a mold of that. They were assisted 6 times in this case by CSSS, but it was not the same trooper every time. And then they showed pictures in the courtroom of John's face, his arm, the bicep area. Now, they didn't show the face picture to us, but I assume it's the one that I showed you in the previous slide. Probably just a close-up of something like that, and then that same arm picture. Okay, so they went to Karen Reed's parents' house. On the way, Trooper Proctor advised the Dighton PD that they'd be responding to that location to seize a vehicle and requested uniformed officers to assist. He told Dighton PD to meet them. Now, when he's speaking to Dighton PD, he told them that they'd be there in like 45 minutes to an hour. And at 2:30, he told Dighton PD to meet them. Trooper Bukhenik says that he parked at the top of the street and waited for a uniformed officer, Officer Barrows. They arrived at the residence, parked on the road. Now, pay attention to all this because it's going to change later. They arrived at the residence, parked on the road. The driveway was not plowed. He said the snow was knee-high to waist deep, and he's told us that he's 6'1" for reference. In front of the garage, they saw Karen Reed's SUV and observed damage to the taillight, the right rear. Snow was caked onto it, and pieces were missing. Mr. Reed opened the front door, but he couldn't open the storm door because of all the snow that was piled up. So he directed them to go over to the garage door where he let them in. They said that Karen Reed was on the couch with her laptop and her phone. Mr. and Mrs. Reed were there during their discussion with Karen. He said it was a polite, courteous conversation, and they were just getting her recollection of what had occurred. They introduced themselves and asked her to walk them through the last 24 hours. So Karen said that she was willing to answer, but didn't want to go into too much detail. They said that they were speaking in a normal tone of voice. Karen Reed was in a relationship with John O'Keefe. They got in an argument the morning of the 28th over what the niece and nephew were being fed for breakfast. I'm assuming this is the Dunkies argument because she had taken Kaylee to Dunkies before school. So I'm guessing that's what they're getting at. She met John O'Keefe at McCarthy's at 9 p.m. The guys were drinking Bud Lights and she was drinking vodka soda. Prior to going to Waterfall, she was asked where she parked her vehicle. Now, I don't know if they mean somebody asked her where she parked her vehicle or they asked her where she parked her vehicle. She parked on Washington Street across from McCarthy's, facing north on the side of Waterfall. Karen said she didn't leave McCarthy's with a beverage or container and confirmed that John O'Keefe didn't have any injuries. He didn't get into any physical or verbal altercations with anyone. Now, question. How did they know that she allegedly left with this glass? Did the McCabe's or Brian Albert bring it up? Because remember, they went to the McCabe's before. But, like, how did they even know to ask about a glass? How did they even know to ask her if she left McCarthy's with a glass? That had to have come up when they interviewed the McAlberts. It had to. Because, I mean, I don't think that's a question that you would just automatically ask somebody, like, hey, when you left the bar, did you take a glass with you? I don't know. But she says they were at the Waterfall for an hour hanging out with acquaintances. They were invited to a residence after Waterfall, and she drove them there. She drove herself and John there. She dropped John off. She didn't see him walk into the house. She said that she made a 3-point turn after dropping him off and left. They asked how she found out about the damage to her vehicle, and she said, I don't know, it happened last night. She said John was at McCarthy's with Kurt Roberts and... Sorry, I just gotta... and Michael Camerano. She gave them their phone numbers. Karen said that she was having stomach issues and didn't want to go into 34 Fairview. So this is the first time that we're really hearing why she dropped him off and didn't go in. She said her stomach was bothering her. She didn't want to go in. We also know that she maybe wasn't super comfortable with the invitation. She wasn't sure that it actually included her and John, so she wanted to make sure about that as well. So she went home to John's house at 1 Meadows Avenue. She woke up and began looking for John. When she found him in the snow, she began CPR. She said that she was doing, said that she was doing CPR and that John had sustained injuries and was bleeding from the nose and the mouth. She said his eyes were swollen. They asked Karen to give step by step how she manipulated the vehicle and left the scene. So they want to know, like, they wanted her to explain how she made the 3-point turn, I'm assuming. And they said at that point the interview was terminated. They advised Karen that her phone was going to be seized as evidence and her vehicle as well. Now, remember, at this point, they don't have a warrant. So she's just like, fine. And she gives them her phone and they take the car. And then the warrants are applied for and given after the fact. So they said they packaged the phone and took it back to the office. The vehicle was towed by a tow truck dispatched by Dighton PD per their request. During the interview, the plow truck had plowed the driveway and the vehicle was being loaded onto the tow truck flatbed. He says that he didn't see cameras on the outside of the house at that time, but subsequently learned there was video recording of the residence and the driveway. The video of the vehicle being loaded onto the truck, Mr. Reed and Karen in the driveway was also captured on video when they came home. And he says there's a white light coming from the taillight. Okay. So, this is a picture of how deep the snow was. That's Karen Reed's car parked in the driveway. You can see that, yeah, there is quite a bit of snow. And then we see where they are pulling it up onto the flatbed tow truck. And what I circled is what he's saying is the white light coming from the taillight. I don't know. I don't really think it's bright white. But maybe. But to me, it looks amber or red. I don't think it's the white I would expect to see if all the red was shattered and gone. After leaving Dighton, they followed the tow truck to the Canton PD. At the Canton PD, the vehicle was unloaded and put in the heated Sally port. There are exterior cameras at the Canton PD and in the Sally port. They left Dighton at 4:15 p.m. and arrived at Canton PD at 5:30. The search warrant for the vehicle was executed on February 1st. Proctor was there. He wasn't. This is when crime scene services came in and took what they needed from the vehicle to be processed at the crime lab. February 2nd, he escorted the vehicle from Canton PD to Milton Barracks because Canton PD were recused from the case and needed to free up the Sally port. The vehicle was then stored in an unheated garage. Investigations are a collaborative effort, and suddenly now there's no lead investigator on the case. We've been told all along Proctor was the lead investigator, but now he says, no, there's no lead investigator. There is a case officer, and in this case, it was Proctor. Proctor applied for search warrants from Ring for the exterior cameras at John O'Keefe's house, and the videos that were provided were in sequential order. The last video provided was the last from their range request of January 24th at midnight to January 30th at midnight. On February 1st, he and Trooper Connor Keefe went to CF McCarthy's to get video and receipts. And they showed some still shots and video from McCarthy's that we've seen a bazillion times. The timestamp was verified to be 12 minutes behind real time on the McCarthy's video. He says Karen has 3 drinks and 3 shots that she poured into her glass. And when she and John leave, Karen Reed has drink number 7 in her hand. Karen Reed had a tab totaling $52.80, and it was paid by John O'Keefe, and there was Tito's vodka on the receipt. They went to Waterfall next for videos and receipts, and they show us still shots from Waterfall that we've seen a bazillion times. John O'Keefe is seen leaving at 12:11 a.m., and that timestamp was verified to be accurate. Sorry, there is a fly that is driving me insane right now. John O'Keefe is seen leaving at 12 a.m. holding a short cocktail glass, like a rocks glass. At 10:54 p.m., John and Karen walk in. Karen gets a drink from the table, and it's a shorter fat glass than what she had at McCarthy's, which was the taller cylindrical glass. And then the next day, Bukhenik comes in and corrects himself, because all along we heard Karen had 9 drinks that night. She had 9 drinks that night. Well, he was telling us a completely different story, but somebody must have realized, and the next day he comes in and says, between the McCarthy's and Waterfall videos, Karen Reed is seen consuming 9 drinks total. That's not what you said. He literally was watching the videos and saying, okay, that's drink 1, that's drink 2, that's... Why should I be surprised with this case? Why? All right, let's see. I need to get myself caught up here. All right, so the ring video at John O'Keefe's house. There's a video of Karen Reed coming home. Or wait, the video of Karen Reed coming home is not there. It's not in the data that they received from Ring. And Karen Reed showing Jen McCabe and Carrie Roberts the taillight damage is also not there. Remember when Jen McCabe was like, oh, we got there, and she was like, look at my taillight, look at my taillight, and all this stuff, and then they played the video and it didn't happen? Well, then Carrie Roberts got up there and said, oh, it must have happened not when we got there, but when we left. And that's the video that's missing. Maybe she never showed them. I don't know. But we do know there is no video of her coming home. Dighton PD documentation of calls for service and log notes from the dispatch center, any reports, log notes, reports, and 911 calls from Mr. Reed were asked for and given by Dighton, and you can see those here. It's the day that this happened. Mr. Reed had called and asked if he could get a ride to Good Samaritan, that his daughter was there and her boyfriend had died, and he needed to get there, but he couldn't because of the snow. And then later they get the call about going to help Proctor and Bukhenik tow the car. On February 3rd, he met with Trooper Proctor, Trooper DeChico at 34 Fairview to do a secondary search because temps were turning, the snow was melting. They brought shovels and rakes. The temps were above freezing, and they were looking for John O'Keefe's hat. They requested the assistance of crime scene services, and Trooper Evan Brent showed up to help with documentation. Brent was already there when they showed up. They located the hat, a drinking straw, and colored plastic all on the grass in the lawn near the flagpole. So here's some of the pictures. You can see his hat And then the black drinking straw, I don't know, because it looks like it's literally laying on top of a tire track, like a car drove through there and then the straw showed up. But, and with all the wind and everything they were talking about, magically the straw is there. It's kind of like the magic hair on the car, I guess. And then I put this piece of plastic up there because it has never been explained to us what that big round piece of plastic was. They just completely avoid that topic. But that was one of the things that were found that day in the grass near the flagpole where they found John O'Keefe. But I'm sorry, that straw is not in the grass. It's just not. Look at the picture with the plastic and then look at the straw. That's not in the grass. Okay. So Lally shows him photos of the 10 items that were located on the grass at 34 Fairview, and then he shows him more photos and more photos and more photos, and then more photos that include the one of the flimsy plastic, and then more photos of glass, the hat, and the blood stains. On February 4th, he advised troopers to drive by 34 Fairview every day on their way to and from work to see if any items presented themselves as the snow melted. He got a call on his way to work that Canton PD was on scene and more items had been revealed. He went and collected the item on the lawn. Each item collected was put in an evidence bag. He wore latex gloves. He transported it to the office and logged it into the system. It was stored in evidence lockers and the bags were sealed. Okay. So he basically gives out an order that before you come to work, you need to go by there and see if anything has revealed itself or presented itself or whatever. Like, do they do this with all investigations? Like, I can see going back a few times because of all the snow, right? But we're talking weeks. For weeks. And every time they went, they found something. And, like, how come it wasn't found before? I don't know. It doesn't add up. But he brought the items from February 3rd, 4th, and 10th with him into court. He shows John O'Keefe's hat. It is a Boston Police Department hat with an American flag, and I believe it had like the blue line, like the thin blue line in the flag. And again, he tells us there was no ring video of Jen McCabe and Carrie Roberts leaving John O'Keefe's house. They said they followed up with ring, but they never got anything. On February 3rd, he met with Brian Higgins, and Proctor was there, of course. Brian Higgins gave them a copy of a Celebrite extraction of text between him and John O'Keefe and him and Karen Reed, and a digital copy of the extraction on a CD. They told Brian Higgins they were in possession of Karen Reed and John O'Keefe's phones, so they would have accurate documentation of those conversations, which, I mean, I'll give him that, because if Higgins had deleted anything and it showed up on John's phone or Karen's phone, then it doesn't look good for Higgins, right? So at least they clarified that. February 3rd, he says that he went inside of 34 Fairview and interviewed Nicole Albert. Proctor was there and Brian Albert was there. Brian Albert was seated next to Nicole Albert during the interview. Again, you're supposed to separate these people, but I digress. Always interview in pairs. So they said that normally one of the state troopers and a local detective, so like in this case it would be Canton, would go to do the interviews. But in this case, since Canton PD recused themselves. They used 2 troopers for interviews instead of 1 trooper and 1 local detective. He said that their interviews usually last about 45 minutes. On June 9th, he met with Karen Reed, and Lally shows a CD, which is audio, of a portion of his interview with Karen Reed. Let me see, do I have that? I think I do. Yeah. When he plays the audio, we hear Karen say, "We're all in on the same joke, right? You know, you're aware he was beaten up by Brian Albert and Colin Albert. My taillight is cracked and John is pulverized." And then Bukhenik advises her to stop speaking. On January 16th, 2024, Sergeant Gallerani from the Needham Police Department met with him and Proctor for collection of their DNA, and they voluntarily gave buccal swabs, cheek swabs. And then we get into Cross with Alan Jackson. The ring video for John O'Keefe search warrant was written by Proctor. The videos from Ring were received by Proctor. They were logged in and in the control of Proctor. The login info and keystrokes were requested as well. An activity log, logins, deletions. There was no evidence of Karen Reed logging in. No activity log was provided by Ring. They contacted Proctor and indicated they had created a Dropbox folder containing evidence that had been sought in the search warrant. And then he says he doesn't recall activity logs being provided by Ring. It's really important because there is zero evidence of her logging in. And that's been one of the big things, is everybody thinks that she logged in and deleted certain videos. So the ones that are missing, they say that she went in and she deleted them herself. She didn't. Even the kids said she didn't have access to it. So Bukhenik says the first time he saw the document of items received from Ring was that day in court. It had the account information, video recordings, activity logs associated with the video recordings, and all times are displayed in UTC. Nothing suggested that Karen Reed accessed the Ring footage. And then Jackson calls him Trooper Proctor, and it was priceless. He's like, "I'm not Trooper Proctor," and Alan Jackson says, "No, you're not." He corrects Jackson on the pronunciation of his name. He says it's Bukhenik. So I do have a video of that.
Trooper Proctor, you were notified.
I am not Trooper Proctor.
I'm sorry. No, you're not. Sergeant Bukhenik.
Sergeant Bukhenik.
How do I say it?
Bukhenik.
I'll give that a shot.
It's fine.
Bukaki?
Yes.
Is that better?
That's better. Thank you.
I'm sorry. It's just, I mean, thanks, Julie Albert, for one of the funniest moments during this trial. On January 29th, he was notified at 6:40 a.m. that a male party was in a snowbank, possibly a heart attack. He was not told it was a Boston police officer. He learned that John O'Keefe was a Boston police officer that day, Trooper Proctor, the case officer, was assigned on January 29th because he was on call. Trooper Bukhenik didn't respond to 34 Fairview that day, and Trooper Proctor did not respond to 34 Fairview that day. On initial investigation, by 10:40 a.m., Bukhenik believed that John O'Keefe had been struck in the face by a person. He hadn't met with Karen Reed or interviewed a single witness at that point. Now, I've got that as well. Hold on.
By 10 or 10:30 in the morning, 10:40 in the morning, it was your belief that Mr. O'Keefe had been struck in the face by a person. That was your initial understanding of the circumstances surrounding the investigation, correct?
My initial understanding was that the defendant stated that she hit him. We did not know the...
Sergeant, you hadn't even met my client at that point. You hadn't interviewed a single witness by 10:41 in the morning, correct? Not one witness.
That's not correct. We had already interviewed the first responders.
All right. And I made a note to myself that the Canton brainworms got to Bukhenik because on direct, you know, he was able to answer everything. But all of a sudden, when he's being cross-examined by Alan Jackson, we start getting the, I can't remember, I don't recall, I don't remember it that way, that kind of thing. So at 10:41 a.m., no civilians had been interviewed. He had interviewed first responders, and he called Good Samaritan to inform them that John O'Keefe was struck in the face with a cocktail glass. And here we go. He says he doesn't recall contacting Good Samaritan, and AJ shows him the document, and he says, "That's not true. I never spoke to Good Samaritan Hospital. That document is for the medical examiner's office." Like I said, are we really nitpicking? Like, did you have to be like, I never said that? No, you did say it. He was just wrong about who you said it to. So you could have just been like, no, that wasn't, I didn't say that to the hospital. I said that to the medical examiner's office. But no, he had to be a dickhead about it. He says, I never spoke to Good Samaritan Hospital. He said that to the medical examiner's operations desk. He says that he called the hospital and said the investigation was being treated as suspicious due to a domestic situation. At 10:41 a.m., he did indicate to another professional involved in the investigation that the circumstances were being treated as a physical assault at that point. They interviewed a witness who was also at the scene when John O'Keefe was discovered. I'm assuming he means Jen McCabe. They didn't go to 34 Fairview for several days. They didn't secure the home as a possible crime scene. They didn't secure the outside as a crime scene either. Now, I have a note in the edge here. Rule in and rule out. So when I was taking my forensics class, we had to do a mock investigation. We were given the scenario of the crime, and we had to basically figure out who did it. And there were other professors at our school that were suspects, and it was really cool. It was really fun. I'm not gonna lie, it was awesome. But basically, we learned when you take a DNA sample, or you take a fingerprint, or whatever, it's not just to say, oh, you did it. It's also to say, no, you didn't do it. This proves that you weren't involved. So if they had gone and looked around in the house, or at least secured it, right, so they could go in if they wanted to later, it wouldn't necessarily be because they thought something happened in the house. They could have approached it from a standpoint of saying, this is to rule you in or rule you out. You know, who knows? Maybe they go in the house and they don't find anything that indicates there was a crime there. There's nothing that indicates that's where John was injured. But they didn't go at all. So how can you rule it in or out if you didn't even look? I hope that made sense. So he didn't have crime scene services process the house. No photos were taken inside the house. No forensic criminalist went inside 34 Fairview. They interviewed on January 29th, Jen McCabe, Matt McCabe, and Brian Albert at Jen McCabe's house. Now, he says that he didn't see Brian Albert in the house when they arrived, but Jen McCabe, Matt McCabe, and Brian Albert all testified that Brian Albert was there before the troopers. The gray hoodie and the orange shirt collected from the floor of Good Samaritan was laid out on butcher paper at the office to dry naturally. It went from Good Samaritan to Dighton, from Dighton to Canton PD, and then the items were laid out to dry late that night at like 10 p.m. Until then, they had been in the back passenger compartment of his truck. He doesn't remember who took control of the items and laid them out, if it was him or if it was Proctor. And once they laid them out, they went home. He said they were secured in an area in the DA's office and no one was guarding them. The troopers in the office all had access, including him and Proctor, to the area where the clothes were laid out to dry. After they dried, he rebagged all the items. And then he shows him the evidence bags from yesterday. He says that he's not the one that rebagged them. It says Proctor on the bag. Surprise. The description on the bag says one orange t-shirt, one gray long sleeve shirt. The description on the other bag says sweatshirt with recovered items inside container. The day before, when he testified, it had one sweatshirt, one had a sweatshirt, and one had an orange shirt in it, and the bag indicates that at one point the sweatshirt and t-shirt were together at some point. So they were bagged together and then bagged separately. Like, when did this happen? Well, we'll never know because they don't have an evidence log. The label on the bag has a date of February 4th. Bag that says that they were both in there, the shirt and the hoodie. That bag says February 4th they were in there together. 6 days after the items were collected, they were not booked or logged into evidence. He says he doesn't know what happened between January 29th and February 4th as far as when they were processed. He thinks they were laying out to dry for 6 days. And everybody had access to them for 6 damn days. He shows him a document regarding February 4th and February 10th searches. The report is dated November 4th of 2023. There's no log. It's just they document in their reports when evidence is found. No actual log, just in the reports. The February 4th search, he responded and Chief Berkowitz was there. They just happened to be there at the same time. You know, because that's what happens in Canton. Everything just happens to happen. He was already going there on his way to work, because remember, we're going to drive by every day on our way to and from work. So Buchenik's already on his way there, and he gets a call, and he thinks it was when he was on Chapman Street that Berkey was there. He doesn't know if Link was there. Berkey said that he saw a piece of plastic as he was driving by. Bukhenik didn't question Berkey about why he was driving by. He said, absolutely not. Bukhenik knew the Canton PD had been recused because of the appearance of potential conflict of interest. His understanding was that it was only regarding interviews, and he didn't find it suspicious at all that Chief Berkowitz was there. He just happened to be driving by, and another piece of plastic sprouts out of the Brian Albert Garden of Plastic. Yeah, okay. On February 10th, he had planned to drive by in the morning and the afternoon on his way to work and on his way home. As evidence revealed itself, because of melting snow, they'd stop and collect it. They didn't contact crime scene services to come out to document where the evidence was found, with GPS or photos, etc., because so much had already been collected. He didn't need them to come and photograph more shards of glass and plastic. Really? They just collected it and processed it. I mean, it'd be nice to know, the locations of this stuff. Was it really in the yard, or... We'll never know because they didn't document it. He says that the location of the items is important because it was in the vicinity of where the victim was found and where other items were located of the same characteristic shape, size, and color. But wouldn't it be nice if you could actually show me something saying, okay, on this day, this was found here, which is in the same area that this was found? But you can't do that because you didn't document it. He says it was an area of 30 square feet from the roadway into the grass. That's his vicinity. He didn't measure from a known object, and there's no exact location documented. So once again, we didn't say okay, let's measure. It was this far from the fire hydrant, or it was this far from the flagpole. Nope, didn't have time for that. Just grab it, bag it, take it in. The February 10th evidence bag, he shows him the label. He says he didn't fill it out. It's not his handwriting. He never logged into any evidence until March 14th at the crime lab. So none of this evidence was logged in, chain of custody, evidence log, etc., until it got to the crime lab on March 14th. And then a chain of custody is established. But prior to the 14th, there is no chain of custody. He says that he didn't make a report about items that he found that day. But didn't you just tell us that that's where everything's documented, is in the reports? But now we're not even going to document it in a report because, it's just more plastic. It's just more glass, whatever. Based on the documentation on the bag, those items were unaccounted for until March 14th at the crime lab. Where were they? You can't tell me because you didn't document it. I mean, these things are important. We're talking about the alleged murder of a fellow police officer. Could you please take it a little more seriously? I mean, any officer deserves better. John O'Keefe deserved better than he got in this investigation. I mean, this is just... If it wasn't so serious, it would be funny. But it is serious, and it's not funny. It's disgusting. Okay. The 5:07 a.m. ring video is Karen backing out of the garage, and the vehicle, he says it came near John O'Keefe's car. So they play the video, and the rear wheel of John's Traverse appears to move. I also thought that it looked like maybe a little bit of the snow got knocked off of the tire, but it did move. We could definitely see that. I don't think I have that up here. No, I don't. Then we talk about the Sallyport video. He says that he went to Canton PD to collect already extracted video. Only a portion. He didn't collect all of the videos. Video was sought on April 23rd and 24th of 2024, y'all. But he didn't collect it. The video shown yesterday was collected after the trial started in April of 2024. But yesterday was not the first time that he saw the video. He says he saw it a couple of weeks ago. He had meetings with Lally in anticipation of his testimony 2 weeks ago and last week. They discussed generally the portions of the case that Bukhenik would be presenting. He didn't write a report about the meeting. He reviewed a video at the second meeting. It was the interior video of the Sallyport, but he doesn't remember the exact video that Lally showed him. He testified yesterday that all videos he was shown were true and accurate based on his memory of events. So let's take a look. This fly.
You recall seeing the video that you saw yesterday, the sort of clear one that has the crime scene tape being put up and all that. You have seen that one before.
Yes,
And that was with Mr. Lally, correct?
that is not correct because I do not recall when I saw that video or what video I saw with Mr. Lally.
I see. All right. I'd like to talk about that Exhibit 446 for a second, and then I'll show it to you. You indicated that the video, all the videos, everything that you saw yesterday was true and accurate, correct? Based on your memory of the events that were memorialized in the video?
The video captures events taking place in an accurate fashion, yes.
In an accurate fashion. All right, that's what I wanted to find out. And after you watched the video, I think you were asked by Mr. Lally, does the video show you or Trooper Proctor having access to or messing with in any way that right rear tail light in any fashion? And you said, never.
I was asked if at any point Trooper Proctor and I had came into contact, I believe, or touched the vehicle and that portion of the vehicle, and I said never. We never touched the vehicle prior to it being properly processed with a search warrant.
And that was specifically his question was to, and your answer was to the right rear portion of the vehicle, right? That right rear tail light.
The right rear damaged taillight, correct.
With the court's permission, I'd like to play a portion of Exhibit 446.
Okay.
Before we begin playing it, Mr. Bates, if you wouldn't mind, may I inquire, Your Honor, of the witness, just to lay a foundation?
Yes.
Sergeant, do you recognize this as being the video that we saw yesterday?
It does look accurate.
Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page. This is 446, just so you have it in mind if I reference that. Space, if you could play that. And I think it's runtime 120. Pause it. Do you recognize that as the video we saw yesterday?
Yes, I do.
Very briefly, if you could move to time of day, 5:37:05. court's permission, can we play at this point?
Yes.
All right, that shows the vehicle coming into the Sally Port, and we're looking at which side of the vehicle?
So that is the driver's side of the vehicle. What that video depicts is a mirror collection. Although mirrors are accurate representation of what you're seeing, it's just inverted. So that is the driver's side of the vehicle. I do not know why it is inverted, but that's the way it was presented, collected and presented from Canton Police.
Can you see a timestamp or a time and date stamp on the bottom of that? It's in blue.
I cannot know.
Okay. Does it appear that time and date stamp, if you can't read every letter on it, that is in correct order? In other words, that's not inverted.
I cannot read it, no.
All right, let's go ahead and play this for a second. Who is that just got out of the car?
I do not know. I think that's the tow truck driver. He would have the only access to the vehicle.
Okay.
We did not touch the vehicle.
Who's that on the left?
I missed that. I was looking down at the laser pointer. I do not know. I know for a fact I'm the gentleman that's wearing a dark olive drab state police baseball style hat, and Trooper Mike Proctor is wearing a winter hat.
Trooper Proctor's wearing what?
A winter hat.
Back that up. That was playing, and I didn't realize it was playing while you were talking. Stop. Move it from that. And stop. Yesterday, when you testified, you indicated that the two individuals in this scene were you and Trooper Proctor, correct?
That is not correct. There was two individuals in the rear of the vehicle I shined my light to. That was me and Trooper Proctor.
Do you see Trooper Proctor toward the back of the rear of the vehicle there?
I can't tell because of what the head is. I just know that Trooper Proctor was wearing a black hat.
Which the person in that in the video to the left, to the rear of the car, is wearing a black hat, correct?
I can't tell. I don't want to be locked into a statement where later on you show me that it's somebody else magically. I can't testify to that.
There's no magic about this. It's your testimony. I'm just asking you what you see.
I don't see that. No.
Stop. Let's go ahead and play at this point. Do you see the person toward the back of the vehicle walking toward the opposite side of the SUV?
I do.
What area does he appear to be going to?
He appears to be going towards the rear passenger side of the vehicle, although it does not appear so because the video is inverted, a mirror image. That's where he's going.
And Sergeant Bukhenik, you testified for at least a half an hour about this video yesterday, correct?
I'm sorry, it was a long day. I don't know the timing of how long I testified.
You significantly testified about this video yesterday, did you not?
I testified about this video.
And you testified that it was true and accurate, correct?
Correct.
You testified that it was reflective of your observations of what was happening in that Sally Port that evening, correct?
I testified that this is a accurate scene and collection of video evidence from the Sally Port.
And as that truck sits in that Sally Port, just like this, it appears from all perspectives that what we're looking at is the passenger side of the car, and that right rear taillight is right there shining in our face, correct? From this perspective.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
From this perspective, from the perspective that the jurors are looking at,
Okay.
from all indications, that would appear to be the right side of the truck, the passenger side of the truck, And that taillight that you can see is the right rear taillight from this perspective, correct?
The way it presents itself, yes.
And yesterday, during the entirety of your questioning by Mr. Lally, not once did you mention that this video is actually completely inverted,
I
correct?
did not know.
Mr. Lally didn't ask you if it was inverted, correct?
That's correct.
And if I hadn't gotten up here and begun questioning you, that would be left uncorrected, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
The person with the winter cap appears to walk directly to the what ultimately should be the right rear tail light of this car, correct?
That's the vicinity, yes. That's where he is. Yeah.
Pause it. I'd like you to pay attention to the right rear of this car. And I know we're completely backward, but it's the far corner of the car. Do you see a person's head there?
It appears as if someone's still there.
And that person is located at or near what portion of the car?
In real life or as it's depicted?
Is the person near in real life, near the right rear tail light of the car?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, standing there, hovering around there, correct?
We don't know the distance that they are in proximity to the actual vehicle. We just know that they're behind the vehicle. That
Looks like it's pretty close, doesn't it, Sergeant?
Objection.
Sustained.
Does that look like he's in close proximity to the right rear tail light?
As I said, I can't tell how far away he is from the vehicle.
Ted's right there, sir. You can't tell that he's right next to the right rear tail light?
Objection.
Sustained.
All right. I want you to pay attention to what that person does as soon as the other person comes out from behind that car. So you see him moving. Stop it. Do you see that person move?
I saw movement in the frame, yes.
Right when the other person is in eyesight of the person toward the right rear, correct?
I mean, the video speaks for itself.
Yeah, it does.
No.
Objection, Your Honor.
The objection sustained. No commenting, Mr. Jackson. We've talked about that.
I'm going to ask Mr. Bates to back it up because there's one other issue I want you to pay attention to, if you can, right at this moment or right before this moment, and that is the timestamp. You back it up maybe 10 seconds. Right about there. Don't play it yet. Instead of paying attention to the individuals, I'm going to ask you, can you see, may I approach the screen here?
Yes.
Can you see the timestamp at 5:37 and 37 seconds p.m.? Can you see that from where you're at?
No, I cannot.
Me neither. That's why I had to walk up to it. Let's play it for about 10 seconds. Pause it. Did you see another person just appear toward the rear end of the car?
There was a fog of some sorts. It did appear as if a person was actually in. There was two people back there, and two people walked away, or one person walked away.
The timestamp jumped to 5:38:01. Correct?
I cannot see the timestamp, sir.
Did it appear that there was an anomaly? There was a portion of that video that was deleted, or it's missing, not deleted, but just missing.
Objection.
Can you tell that? Does it appear that way to you, Sergeant?
No, Your Honor, I cannot tell what is happening with the video.
If you take a close look at there's a classic police car in that Sally Port, correct?
There's an antique vehicle there, yes, yes.
If you take a close look at the trunk of that vehicle, see the word police?
Yes, I believe I can read that, yes.
And it's backward, correct?
It is mirrored, correct.
That's a good indication that this is an inverted video, right?
It appears that way, yes.
And if we were to fast forward at 5:42, not another 20 seconds. There you go. Can we just play it at this point? Oh, you take one pause it. Pause it. You see the Sallyport garage came down?
Yes,
You see a number on the garage?
I do.
Is that correct?
What is correct?
Does the number appear correct? How do you make it 4?
No, the number's in the mirror.
Alright, sorry for my ring notifications popping up in there. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but like, were they, pop off in the comments and tell me, do you think they did this on purpose? Like, I feel like it was an insult to my intelligence that you're going to present me this video and tell me that it's accurate when you've got the driver coming out of the passenger seat. And in the video, it looks like that light, I'll tell you, that light looked like it was shining some white light to me, but that's on the wrong side. That's on the driver's side. So what do you think was up with this inverted video? I mean, I thought Jackson put it the best when he was like, okay, so if I show you a mirrored image, if you're looking for someone and they have a tattoo on their right arm, like I do right here, but it looks like it's my left arm. Well, if somebody sees me and they think, oh, she's got that tattoo on her left arm, but she's got that tattoo on her right arm, they're not going to think it's me because it's the wrong arm. So like a mirror image is not the same. I don't care how many different ways Bukhenik wants to explain it to me. It's not the same. It's not. You made it look like something it wasn't. And I don't know why they did it. I don't know if they really thought they were going to get by with it, that all of us are just that stupid. But they tried. I'm going to play this one real quick.
Where you just direct your attention to where you observe yourself and where you observe the problem.
That's Trooper Proctor and myself. Yeah.
So he identified them in the video, but then he goes back and he's like, oh no, that wasn't me. Really? And the guy that he identifies at the front that's slipping around is the guy that got out of the driver's side. And I hear now the tow truck driver says he's not the one that drove it into the Sallyport. So something's going on here. Something is going on here. And people are not happy about it. I mean, I don't know what the jury is thinking about it, but I don't like it. Let's see, we need to go. All right, so he said that he and Proctor never touched the vehicle until after it was processed. They never touched the right rear damaged taillight. And that was the end of the day that day. And then when they came back, we're still talking about the Sallyport video. And he played the video of the person slipping at the front of the SUV. And Bukhenik doesn't recall testifying that he recognized Proctor and himself in the video. But I just played it for you. So we know damn good and well he did. You want me to play it again? It's a quick video, so I'll play it again. He says that he didn't identify them, so himself or Proctor.
Where you just direct your attention to where you observe yourself and where you observe the property.
That's Trooper Proctor and myself. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, you did. He says that he can't tell if Proctor is at the back of the SUV, and it appears that it's the right rear tail light. That's what you see in the inverted video. He never mentioned it was inverted under direct with Lally, and Bukhenik says it's an accurate depiction of activity, just mirrored. The timestamp at the beginning of the video, and then we have to go to a sidebar. Long sidebar. From 5:30:23 to 5:48:15, the runtime is 5 minutes and 51 seconds. At the sidebar, the attorney stipulated to the time. The actual time of the video is 17 minutes and 50 seconds. Like I said, 5:30:23 to 5:48:15. 17 minutes and 50 seconds, but the runtime is 5 minutes and 51 seconds. So 2/3 of the video is missing. Bukhenik says it was never there, it was never recording. Jackson brings up how people appear out of nowhere, and Bukhenik says it's not a smooth recording, that it's triggered by motion to save storage space. He says he doesn't know the amount of storage on the system, and Jackson again says it shows people appearing out of nowhere. Proctor walks out at 5:38:07 with a notebook or a portfolio, and the person that walked out with the portfolio is the person that Bukhenik identified as Proctor, and we will later find out it was in fact Proctor. The Canton PD to 34 Fairview is only a 5-minute drive. Let's see. Then he played the video, flipped the right way. I think I have... It's not the whole thing, but this is from Microdots. Shout out to Microdots.
This video presented by the Commonwealth appears to show Karen Reed's Lexus entering the Canton Police Department Sally Port, with an irregularity to her right side taillight. The driver gets out of the passenger side seat. There are 9 significant cuts, totaling 9 minutes and 18 seconds removed from the video. The number 4 on the bay door and the words written on the rear of the police car are backwards. This video has clearly been edited to remove all of the portions that would show the officers gathered around and examining the actual rear right side tail light. Because if they didn't, it would have been obvious that the entire image has been flipped with the intention of deceiving the jury. This is the true orientation of the video. It's possible that this could all be blamed on user error if it weren't for 2 important facts. First, the timestamp should not be reversed when the video is oriented correctly, as we see here. This seems to indicate that it was added after the video was flipped. The video footage and the timestamp should both be correct or incorrect together, as it was presumably imprinted onto the video as it was recorded. And 2, why does there seem to be an issue with the left side tail light? No damage has ever been mentioned to that side of Karen's vehicle before. After examining this video, it appears the Commonwealth has tampered with the footage. The video has definitely been flipped, a new timestamp likely superimposed, with all clips showing officers examining the rear right side edited out, and the rear left tail light likely altered to radiate more white light. If there's an innocent explanation for this, it escapes me.
To me, it matters. You can let me know in the comments, but to me, it matters. Seeing it the right way is completely different. It looks like the other taillight was broken because I can see white. And why are you trying to convince me? Like, you're all gathered around the taillight and you're trying to tell me that you're not. But when you flip it the right way, obviously you are gathering by the freaking taillight. So anyway, so as you saw, the timestamp in blue is inverted when you play it the right way. They zoomed in on a certain part where you can see the white rag near the golf cart. Remember that from the pictures with the red Solo cups. Bukhenik says he can't tell what it is. And then he shows the video from the other camera, which is like the bad quality one. It's super dark. You can't see anything. And it starts at like 5 minutes and 8 or 5:08, I think it says. He plays the video and Bukhenik says like 15 seconds elapsed. The SUV appears at 5:50:46. So 15 seconds of video jumped 42 minutes. 42 minutes and 15 seconds. The exact time a person is at the taillight who is identified as Proctor, that exact time, not shown. The exact condition of the taillight when it pulled into the Sally Port is missing. Bukhenik says it's not missing, it's just not recorded. So we don't have it on video, what the exact condition was. We should, even if it's the shitty quality video. But why didn't anybody take a picture of it like when it was in the driveway at her parents' house before they put it on the tow truck? I know tow truck drivers usually take pictures, but I don't know if this one did. But the cops, you know, take a picture and say this is what it looked like. And then when you get to the Sally Port, take a picture and say this is what it looked like. There are none. There are none. So then we get back into redirect with Lally, and he says that when they received the video from Canton PD, it was already inverted. And Bukhenik says there was no manipulation or alteration from him receiving the video until now. And the skipping throughout the video is because there was no motion, so there's no recording. Lally plays the entire 5 minutes and 51 second video, flipped the right way. Bukhenik doesn't know if any snow came off of John's vehicle when Karen backed into it. The video from the Sally Port, after all other videos and dash cam and people seeing the SUV. No, okay. So the video that was taken in the Sally Port was after all the other videos and all the dash cam videos and all the people seeing her SUV. And I was like, we're not stupid. Obviously, the video in the Sally Port is at night and all that other stuff happened in the morning. Duh. Again, don't make me feel stupid. So Bukhenik and Proctor, absolutely not, is his answer regarding touching or manipulating the taillight. Absolutely not. And then he said, why tell the medical examiner it was a domestic situation? He says he did that because he had learned that Karen Reed said, I hit him, and Canton PD had found the glass at the scene. He hadn't seen John O'Keefe prior to that call. Sergeant Good reported that statement to him after Good talked to Flamati. So this is like second, third, fourth hand at this point. After observing John O'Keefe's injuries, he could tell that glass was not the weapon used to cause the injury to the back of John O'Keefe's head. He says that he told the medical examiner it was glass to the face, not the back of the head. Sergeant Good told him, I hit him at the Canton PD. Flamati didn't tell him that. There's no report of Good saying that. The high-quality inverted video was received in late April or early May after the trial had started. He says that he doesn't know who retrieved the video. He says that Tully told him that the video was there. And Tully told him that Canton PD were recused from interviews. And the Canton PD is the one that provided the video. So, sorry, kind of confusing there at the end. But I think he's full of himself and he's full of shit. Let me see. Just some other videos and things that I have here. So this is the reaction to his testimony in the paper. Trooper's testimony magically unclear. Magic is a nice word for it. This is what was reported on the news about the video.
Reed's SUV that prosecutors showed to the jury may not be what it seems. This video appears to be flipped. The image of it, the defense says flipped on purpose. News Center 5's David Buenic live at the courthouse in Dedham to explain more. David.
Erica, this revelation came at the end of today's testimony here, and it caught everyone off guard. Some jurors even looked at each other quizzically, and some may have wondered if they'd just been tricked. The video shows police pulling Karen Reed's SUV into the Canton Police Department garage after it was seized as evidence. The video appears to show the passenger side, including the passenger side taillight, which prosecutors say was damaged after Reed allegedly backed into John O'Keefe and killed him.
I testified that this is a accurate scene.
But under cross-examination, State Police investigator Yuri Bukhenik confirmed the video is actually inverted. It shows not the passenger side, but the driver's side of the SUV. At one point, it shows the driver getting out.
Not once did you mention that this video is actually completely inverted.
I did not know.
How did you discover that the image was inverted?
I saw the word police and thought I had dyslexia.
In the video, the word police appears backwards on another vehicle parked in the garage. So does the number 4 on one of the garage's overhead doors. Defense attorney Alan Jackson believes it was no accident.
The timestamp across the bottom is not inverted, which means somebody had to put that on the inverted, the manipulated, the altered video on purpose.
Here is the video again after we have uninverted it. What is in fact the passenger side taillight is out of view, and there appears to be somebody standing near it.
Who's the guy in the watch cap, in the winter cap, back there by that right rear taillight the entire time by himself? That's Proctor.
Proctor is Trooper Michael Proctor, the lead investigator on the case. Now, the defense has said that he is the one who broke the taillight as part of an effort, they say, to frame Karen Reed. I did reach out to the district attorney's office about that inverted video. They said they would not comment.
All right, and then the last one I have is Vinny Politan. He has his own YouTube channel now, if you didn't know. that is separate from his show that he does on Court TV. And Court TV overall to me has seemed very biased in their coverage, especially Julie Grant. They have seemed very Karen is guilty from the jump. So I tend to watch Law and Crime. I do watch Vinnie Politan's show at night, but on his channel, he reacted to the flipped video, and even he couldn't believe it. So I'm going to play a little bit of his show for you.
That is misrepresenting the scene of where the car is parked. This is not the scene. This is the scene. And you misrepresented the scene to the jury as a witness and as a prosecutor. And that is not right. That is wrong. Your sworn obligation is to the truth, to seek justice and the truth. Now, are they trying to pull a fast one here? Maybe. You didn't explain it. No one said a peep during the direct examination. You just put this in front of the jury. And I don't know how closely the jury is paying attention to this, whether they'll realize, like the world on the internet realized quickly, and all of us realized that this is reverse land. You know, in some cases, it might not be a big deal in some situations, but here it's the biggest deal, because the defense is alleging that you are, and I say you, the prosecution, the Commonwealth, is manipulating the evidence. Well, this is a manipulation right in front of the jury. Now,
all right, so what I want y'all to do is let's get this discussion going in the comments. First of all, I want to know, what do you think is holding the jury up on their verdict? Do you think that there's one holdout that will not budge? I find it really hard to believe that you're going to find 12 people that say she's guilty. If there happens to be a mistrial, do you think the Commonwealth will retry her? I don't think they should have brought this case this time. And after everything that has come out that they screwed up, I can't imagine them spending all that money to try her again. But then at the same time, I can. You know, they're going to want to try to convict her. But let me know in the comments what you think is going on with the jury. Let me know what you think about them trying to slide this inverted video bias. And does it make you question other evidence that they have presented to us? If they weren't able, allegedly, they weren't able to realize that that video was in fact inverted and they submitted it as accurate evidence, what other evidence have they submitted that they told us was accurate, but maybe it's not? It's a concern. It's a concern I have. But let me know where you're at, and give this a thumbs up, please. Share it and subscribe to the channel. Liking and sharing and subscribing is all free, and it really helps me and it helps the channel, and it gets it out there in the algorithm. And I would greatly appreciate it if you would do that. So until next time, y'all have a great day, and I will see you in the next one.